Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu, Hebrew Bevinta Neemin, is an Israeli politician serving as the Prime Minister of Israel since 2022. He has previously held this position from 1996 to 1999 and from 2009 to 2021. Netanyahu is the current leader of the Likud party and holds the distinction of being Israel's longest-serving prime minister, with over 17 years in office. Additionally, he is the first Israeli prime minister to have been born in the land of Israel after the state's establishment in 1948. Personal life and education. Netanyahu was born on October 21, 1949, in Tel Aviv to a Jewish secular family. He spent his early childhood in Jerusalem, but his family lived in the United States for a period due to his father's work as a renowned historian. After returning to Israel in 1967, Netanyahu joined the Sayeret Matkal, the elite Israeli Special Forces unit, where he participated in several missions. He eventually retired from the military with the rank of captain. After his military service, Netanyahu began his studies in architecture at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, where he later earned a master's degree in executive management. Additionally, he pursued political science studies at Harvard University, but his academic career was interrupted following the death of his brother during the Entebbe operation, a highly publicized hostage rescue mission in Uganda, and his entry into politics. After completing his education, Netanyahu began working as an economic consultant for the Boston Consulting Group. In 1984, he was appointed as Israel's permanent representative to the United Nations, gaining significant public attention. In 1993, Netanyahu was elected leader of the Likud party, becoming the head of the opposition. First term as prime minister. In 1996, Netanyahu was elected prime minister after defeating Shimon Peres in Israel's first direct vote for the position. At 46, he became the youngest prime minister in Israel's history. His first term included negotiations with Yasser Arafat and the signing of the Hebron Protocol, which involved withdrawing Israeli forces from parts of the city of Hebron and transferring control to the Palestinian Authority. However, Netanyahu lost the 1999 election to Ehud Barak and stepped away from politics for a time. Return to power. Following his return to politics, Netanyahu served as Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Finance under Ariel Sharon's government. During this period, he implemented significant economic reforms that led to substantial growth in Israel's economy. However, he resigned in opposition to Israel's withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. In 2005, Netanyahu reclaimed leadership of the Likud party, and in 2009, he formed a coalition government with right-wing parties to become prime minister once again. He went on to secure victories in the 2013 and 2015 elections, allowing him to continue leading the country. Relations with Donald Trump. Netanyahu maintained close ties with Donald Trump, the former U.S. president, and emphasized this relationship in his foreign policy. During Trump's presidency, key milestones in U.S.-Israel relations occurred, including the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the acknowledgement of Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and the signing of the historic Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab countries. Criticism and legal challenges. Netanyahu has faced severe criticism for supporting the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which are considered illegal under international law. In 2019, he was indicted on charges of corruption, fraud, and breach of trust. He was forced to resign from all ministerial roles, though he remained prime minister. Netanyahu has consistently denied the charges and described them as politically motivated. The Israel-Hamas war and recent criticism. In October 2023, Israel faced a massive attack by Hamas, which led to the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war. Netanyahu came under intense criticism for failing to anticipate the attack and for the intelligence lapses under his government. Protests erupted, with some demonstrators calling for his resignation. His government also faced international condemnation for its actions in Gaza, including allegations of war crimes and genocide. In December 2024, the International Criminal Court, ICC, issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu and several members of his cabinet on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Achievements and challenges. Netanyahu is recognized for his ability to implement economic reforms and for his firm grip on both domestic and foreign policy, cementing his status as one of Israel's most influential politicians. At the same time, his policies on Palestine, settlement expansion, and human rights issues have consistently sparked controversy. His efforts to retain power have been accompanied by ongoing allegations of corruption, which have further polarized public opinion. Subsequently, the stagnation of the peace process led to new negotiations, resulting in the signing of the Wye River Memorandum in 1998. This agreement outlined the actions that the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority needed to take to implement the interim agreements of 1995. The document was signed by Benjamin Netanyahu and Yasser Arafat, the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, and was approved by the Israeli Parliament Knesset on November 17, 1998, with 75 votes in favor and 19 against. Prime Minister Netanyahu, referencing the 1967 Khartoum Conference, announced the famous policy of the three no's. No to the Yah, withdrawal from the Golan Heights, no to discussing Jerusalem, and no to negotiations under any preconditions. In 1997, Netanyahu ordered a Mossad operation to assassinate Khaled Mashal, the leader of Hamas, in Jordan. This action took place just 3 years after the signing of the peace agreement between Israel and Jordan. A group from Mossad, disguised as 5 Canadian tourists, entered Jordan on September 27, 1997, and injected a toxic substance into Khaled Mashal's ear on a street in Amman. However, the plot was uncovered, and 2 Mossad agents were arrested by Jordanian police while 3 others sought refuge in the Israeli embassy, which was immediately besieged by Jordanian soldiers. Hussein, the king of Jordan, furious over this action, demanded the antidote from Israel and threatened to annul the peace treaty between the 2 countries. Ultimately, under pressure from then-President Bill Clinton, Netanyahu capitulated, ordered the release of 61 Jordanian and Palestinian prisoners, including Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the spiritual leader of Hamas, and delivered Bethses, the antidote to Jordan. This incident soured the newly formed relations between Israel and Jordan. Thus, second term as prime minister, 2009 to 2021. In the 2009 elections, Netanyahu's Likud party won 27 seats in the Knesset. On February 20th of that year, President Shimon Peres asked Netanyahu to form a new government. On April 1, 2009, Netanyahu's new cabinet was presented to the Knesset, receiving a vote of confidence with 69 in favor, 45 against, and 1 abstention. This cabinet included 30 ministers, among them 2 women and 5 ministers of Russian descent. During his premiership, Netanyahu dismantled several checkpoints in the West Bank facilitating SAS commute and increasing imports to the region, thus contributing to economic growth in the West Bank. He also welcomed the Arab Peace Initiative. In 2013, he formed a new coalition government that did not include extreme Orthodox members. However, as tensions rose in 2014, particularly between Israeli forces and Hamas, Netanyahu refocused on Hamas, blaming the movement for the kidnapping of 3 Israeli teenagers. Israel's response included airstrikes on Gaza and the launch of Operation Protective Edge, which caused extensive casualties and devastation in Gaza. In 2015, during a controversial speech to the U.S. Congress, Netanyahu declared that a Palestinian state would not be established during his tenure. He stated that the creation of such a state would lead to the handing of land to radical Islamist terrorists. Sixth term as Prime Minister. 2022 present. After winning the 2022 elections, Netanyahu began his sixth term as prime minister by forming a far-right coalition. In the initial months, he proposed controversial judicial reforms that sparked widespread protests in Israel. Critics of these reforms argued that such changes would undermine the independence of the judiciary and call Israeli democracy into question. Protests intensified to the point where some military and political officials spoke out against them. The Israel-Hamas War, 2023. On October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a large-scale attack against Israel from Gaza, initiating a war that faced a severe military response from Israel. Netanyahu announced that Israel would go to war with Hamas with full force and continued to issue threats against the residents and leaders of Gaza. He proposed forming a broad war government that included the opposition, but his failure to foresee. The attack led to increased criticism of his administration. Polls showed that a majority of Israelis held Netanyahu responsible for security failures and called for his resignation after the war's conclusion. In December 2023, he declared his support for the voluntary migration of Palestinians from Gaza. Yet, on May 20, 2024, the International Criminal Court announced its intention to issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Throughout various terms of Netanyahu's premiership, Israel witnessed economic advancements and an expansion of influence in the Arab world. However, at the same time, his domestic and foreign policies, especially concerning the Palestinians, faced significant criticism. International Criminal Court ruling and reactions. On November 21, 2024, the International Criminal Court, ICC, issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, and Mohammed Deif, accusing them of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Netanyahu denounced the ruling as a ridiculous and false lie and described it as anti-Semitic. In response to the warrants, representatives from Australia, France, Spain, Ireland, Belgium, Switzerland, Austria, Slovenia, Denmark, Norway, Chile, Canada, South Africa, the Maldives, Oman, and Jordan expressed their support for the independence of the ICC. Among Israel's Western allies, only Germany and Hungary refrained from endorsing the ruling. However, other European leaders declared their adherence to the warrants, suggesting Netanyahu could potentially face arrest if he travels to their countries. Furthermore, politicians from the UK, the Netherlands, Canada, Switzerland, Italy, Ireland, and Spain, as well as the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the European Union's foreign policy chief, emphasized the need for the warrants to be enforced. Perspectives on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. During his 2009 election campaign, Netanyahu promised that if he won, he would overthrow the Hamas government in Gaza. Jewish settlements. Netanyahu also pledged to support the natural growth of Jewish settlements in the West Bank. He stressed that not only was he against dismantling these settlements, but he was also unwilling to show any flexibility with the Palestinians regarding the division of Jerusalem. He also stated that he was not bound by previous agreements between Israeli governments and the Palestinian Authority. Return to 1967 borders. In a secretly recorded video from 2001, Netanyahu spoke about the Oslo Accord, stating, "Before the elections, I was asked if I would abide by the Oslo treaties. I said that I would, but we would interpret these treaties in a way that would prevent a return to the 1967 borders." In 2011, during a speech to the U.S. Congress, Netanyahu completely rejected a return to the 1967 borders, but stated that Israel was prepared to make painful compromises to achieve peace with the Palestinians. However, he deemed the division of Jerusalem and the return of Palestinian refugees and their families impossible. Independent Palestinian State. On June 14, 2009, in a speech, Netanyahu conditionally agreed to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, provided that it was demilitarized and that the Palestinians recognized Israel as a Jewish state. He also prohibited the return of Palestinian refugees and declared Jerusalem the united and eternal capital of Israel. Withdrawal from UNESCO. At the end of 2018, Israel, along with the United States, officially withdrew from UNESCO, citing what they termed UNESCO's anti-Israel bias. The U.S. State Department announced its decision in 2017, accusing UNESCO of anti-Israel bias, and Benjamin Netanyahu immediately ordered the process of Israel's withdrawal from UNESCO to begin. Iranian nuclear program. Benjamin Netanyahu is a prominent opponent of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons, which he considers a serious threat to Israel's security. In his speech at the UN General Assembly in 2012, he illustrated Iran's nuclear program by displaying an image of a bomb and set a red line for Iran's uranium enrichment activities, SAS, Green Movement protests. During the Iranian protests following the 2009 presidential election, Netanyahu praised the courage of the Iranian protesters, stating, "The brave people of Iran have shown the true face of Iran." Comparison of Iran to Nazi Germany. In 2008, Netanyahu compared Iran to Nazi Germany, saying that the only difference between the two is that the Islamic Republic is first seeking nuclear power and will then start a new world war. Financial corruption allegations. In 2017, Netanyahu was accused in several financial corruption cases, including bribery and tax evasion. Israeli prosecutors accused him of intervening in business dealings between companies for his and his family's benefit. The police also presented evidence of him receiving bribes from wealthy individuals, including gifts of cigars and expensive drinks. These accusations led to widespread protests in Israel, and even his wife, Sarah Netanyahu, was accused of using public funds for personal purposes. Despite these allegations, he has denied them all. End. Personal life. Netanyahu met his first wife, Miriam, while studying in Boston, and they had a daughter named Noah. After their separation, he married his second wife, Sarah Netanyahu, with whom he has two sons, Avner and Yair. Netanyahu's older brother, Yonatan Netanyahu, a prominent Israeli army commander, was killed during the rescue operation of a hijacked plane in Uganda in 1976 and is recognized as a national Gedsi Izdavahaha.